Zach Manian from Cosmos Project, Renee Reinsberg from Solo, Anatoly Yakovenko from Solana, and Robert Habermeyer from Polkadot are all joining the discussion with Ashley Tyson, who ran and co-moderated the Ready Layer 1 conference, playing air traffic control and trying to organize the chaos here. So tall task that I'm very excited to watch, and I'm getting my popcorn ready even though it's early here. So Ashley, take it away. Thank you again.
Thank you, Ryan. Okay, this is exciting. So this is a little different. They're backstage for Mainnet versus Ready Layer 1, but it's so lovely to see you guys again. Rob, with your podcast mic, you're looking very official. Yeah, as Ryan mentioned, we recently hosted an event called Ready Layer 1 that, we wanted to host something that wasn't just like very protocol specific, it was protocol inclusive. And so I'm joined by a number of founders who are co-hosts of that organization. So we put together a number of different workshops around different challenges that we face as a community, blockchain composability and WASM and ecosystem development. And so I think, the idea for the Ready Layer 1 Redux was to kind of address some of those issues that we discussed in Ready Layer 1 and kind of see where we've come in the past month since that happened. And before we do that, I guess maybe we should take a moment to introduce everyone, just to make sure everyone's familiar with who's on this panel with me. So Zaki, maybe you kick it off.
Hey, I'm Zaki. I work on the Cosmos project and various other blockchain things. So.
Awesome. Hey, I'm Renee. I work on Celo, which takes a mobile-first approach to blockchain.
Hey, I'm Anatoly, and I'm one of the co-founders of Solana.
Hey, I'm Rob. I'm one of the co-founders and lead developers of Polkadot Network, which does heterogeneous sharding.
Cool. So quick question, I guess, for the moderators of this. I know that there's like chats going on, and I wanted to be able to open this up to audience participation. I'm only seeing a private chat right now, a backstage chat, but I would love to have the audience ask any questions they want. So maybe you guys just drop me a private chat and we can figure out how to do that. So let's kick things off. I think it's worth talking about, kind of the current state of affairs. It feels like we'd be missing something by not addressing like what we're currently seeing, right? 2020 has been a hell of a year. I don't think anyone anticipated this starting in January, and we've seen just a number of like very interesting progressions from just global economic shifts, pandemics, protests. So I'd like to take a moment and kind of, ask everyone how they're feeling, like what their perspective is. Kind of it feels amiss to just jump right into business as usual. I know that, we can't solve for everything, and so certainly want to talk about, what we're working on and the progress we're making, but would like to kick the panel off by starting there.
So
go ahead.
I guess I probably, like a lot of people in this space, work in this space because we felt like legitimacy of traditional institutions was sort of collapsing, and like a desire to like build alternatives. In addition to like my blockchain work, I've worked on like sort of privacy and police accountability issues for like the last 7 years. But it's extremely, I don't know, I feel shell-shocked, like sort of in spite of the fact that I sort of imagined a lot of this happening for years, it's shocking to sort of watch it play out.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think my opinion here is anything particularly controversial, but you have deep-rooted distrust in institutions. You don't have nearly enough accountability, and hopefully, we can work to create systems that are more private and transparent. I think one major shift that's been going on is in at least American society is a shift from what you might call a we society to an I society, where people are not the emphasis is placed a lot more on the individual than on the collective. And that makes it very difficult to support people in our society who are more in need than others. So you can hope that some of the tools that we build for social coordination, and I view blockchains as being something for that, can improve on that.
Yeah, I'm to that point. I think like this thing that's like really bothering me is this like lack of truth, or like what I seems obvious to be true is not obvious to be true to it seems like a vast majority of the world, or like a vast majority of the folks in the United States that seem to be making decisions. And like I don't know, every time I hear Vitalik, I kind of don't understand him for 6 months. And like the stuff he's been talking about governance and like quadratic voting, I feel like this might be like tools that we can use to like really discern what is true, what is not, by like actually having people put some more than just like a one man, one vote kind of stake, like skin in the game, kind of to figuring things out. So like I'm hoping the things that we're working on now will, maybe in 100 years will like make a difference. Like maybe these are the protocols that will establish and found societies that are like more open and transparent and can kind of function above these things.
Yeah. First off, Ashley, thanks for starting us off with that. It feels like just with everything like work, to keep going as we have been and not acknowledge what's happening. It just feels impossible. And I think that's kind of a shared feeling by many of us. We spent most of yesterday and parts of the weekend with the team, just kind of having a conversation, not necessarily like trying to like jump to solutions already, but simply trying to process. And, we have a pretty global team. And so it's also, I think I agree on this point of like just education, right? I think getting everybody sort of the information on what's happening and why this is kind of an important point in time and, kind of how to put this into context. I think for us, it's been just acknowledging that this is happening and providing the space, I think, for the team to participate, to dedicate time to social justice. We have, and I think many projects in the space have sort of grand visions around what their technologies can enable in the future, and I think that's all great, and that's all, I think it's even a good exercise right now to sit down and say, okay, well, here are concrete things that we want to do, and then have that kind of put that kind of to the side as kind of a list to come back to over time. And once we kind of get through this moment, to kind of continuously kind of go back and look at and kind of check yourself, are you actually delivering on those and not forgetting about it. But I think the key thing right now is really just to, kind of be in this moment and use all the voices that we have to make ourselves heard for what's right. So yeah, I think it's a really important time.
I'm really appreciative for your insights, and I hope that we can spend more time working together, thinking, listening, understanding, strategizing. But I guess to talk about the topic at hand, we did have this Ready Layer 1 event. Since then, we've had a number of launches, a number of Mainnet launches. So congrats, Renee and Rob, on Celo and Polkadot Mainnet launch. Obviously, Zaki with Cosmos and Holly with Solana, have experienced that a little bit more recently. So I'm curious, how's it going for you guys post Mainnet? Renee, maybe you can kick it off.
Yeah, and so the protocol itself is live, but that's kind of, there's a series of steps that's going to kind of happen over the coming kind of weeks and months. So the next kind of big milestone for us is kind of, through governance, when the stability protocol will be turned on and Celo dollars will basically kind of become available through the protocol. And so that's when we'll start seeing a lot of the use cases that we've been prepping for and where the community has done pilots or has been building stuff towards is going to go live. So yeah, all eyes on that. So we celebrate a little bit the milestone, but it's been kind of we've kind of we've been keeping kind of like with the same pace to make sure that we get sort of full rollout.
Yeah, congrats to you, Renee from Cello. That's a really exciting launch. I'd say we're in a very, very similar position. It doesn't end at the launch, and what we've got launched so far is what we're calling Chain Candidate 1. So it's not necessarily the mainnet, but it's the thing that could become the mainnet. So it's being launched in a proof of authority manner with the option for people to already register and stake. Then it's going to migrate over to proof of stake. Right now, the Web3 Foundation maintains what we're calling a sudo key, which allows them to essentially have admin privileges. And there will be full decentralization when the Web3 Foundation will relinquish that ability, enable balance transfers. And beyond that, we're looking to deploy parachains, which are one of the flagship features of Polkadot. And there's still a lot of development work to do. There's still a lot of interesting governance experience going on Kusama, and I'd say the pace hasn't dropped at all. And we celebrated that event as well, but we know that there's a lot coming in the next few months to look forward to and to be building on.
We basically launched like a week before Black Thursday, so we didn't have even like a chance to like crack the champagne. But like I guess the stage we're in is we're calling it mainnet beta, so it's feature complete. Our nodes only have a super minority of the network, and this is only in case there's a 0 day, so we can pull the plug. But beyond that, the token is live. We're getting folks to stake and kind of going through like the live process of actually onboarding folks. And like we have a major partner, Kin. You guys have some positive, some negative opinions of them, I'm sure, but they're actually seeing one of the use cases that we're super excited about, and that is very small transactions and social networks. Kind of like one of the, like what I always say, what is our purpose? It's to slay the vampire squid, And one of the vampire squid is these advertisement networks that are basically sucking the truth out of the world, like sucking the life out of it. And if we can replace ads with like just really small human to human like tips, like what Dodge was supposed to be, like I think there's a chance we can make a slightly better world. I'm not betting a lot on this. Like it's not going to save the current crisis, but like there's a chance, right? It could help.
So the Cosmos Hub has been a sort of like a decentralized instantiation of a Cosmos Stack network, has been live for more than a year. What we have coming up for us is what we've been calling the Stargate upgrade. And the Stargate upgrade is a big part of sort of finally delivering a lot of basically the entire vision that was in the original Cosmos white paper. It's taken a while to get here, but we are finally there. Right now, we're in the middle of Game of Zones, which is our incentivized testnet for the interblockchain communication protocol. It's been pretty amazing to see millions of IBC packets being transferred between networks. There's this really cool map of zones website that was sort of like an interchain block explorer. It's sort of a first of a kind thing that's pretty exciting. The other things that we're doing with the Stargate upgrade is we're making upgrades easier. Cosmos Hub, we've had these like stop the world upgrades. And then finally, we're just trying to more align the Cosmos stack with sort of normative, like standard pieces of internet software and like sort of web and cloud software. So that, all of these blockchain protocols tend to have been like sort of been built in glass bubbles and sort of accreted their own like opinionated versions of things that don't necessarily are the same as the way software is normally developed. So, we're making the whole Cosmos stack sort of proto-buff compatible, make it easier for people to build sort of on top of it. So the Stargate upgrade is going to be this hugely complicated thing, and it's sort of what I'm going to be focusing on post Game of Zones.
Cool. A couple of you mentioned, folks building on top of your protocols, and certainly had a question from the audience. How do you incentivize developers to build on your respective networks? can each of you elaborate there? And also just to mention, there's going to be a Ready Layer 1 Redux that happens this afternoon. And there will be 4 different panels. One of them is called Picking a Protocol, where we'll hear from, I believe it's 4 different projects building in different ecosystems. So it would be cool for you to head over there and hear directly from there. But from the protocol end, how do we incentivize developers to build on our respective networks? Are there specific sectors that you're going after as like initial use cases? Maybe Rob, if you want to kick off there.
Sure. So I mean, I think that our focus is very similar to many other projects, which is, you know, the idea that the amount of blockchain developers in the space has not reached anywhere near its peak. So I mean, the main thing to do is try and convince developers that they want to build on a decentralized ecosystem in the first place. So, you know, to that extent, we're running lots and lots of hackathons. We're doing lots of events. We're doing a lot of developer outreach, building loads of documentation, and, you know, the goal is just show people what's possible, and show them what they can build on top of Polkadot, make it easy for them to do that, run what we're calling, you know, a builders program in order to bring them into the loop, connect them with each other, make those connections and make those synergies that are, you know, really one of the ways that the decentralized ecosystem can thrive is different projects that enable each other, you know, things that might not exist on their own in isolation, and it would be hard for them to get funding, but because they fill a niche. And, you know, I think the modern economy is powered by specialization and filling niches. So enabling people to fill niches and showing them that's possible is one of the main approaches that we take.
Cool. So to add to that, the niche we're filling is kind of like the lowest latency possible network with the cheapest transactions. And this is part of kind of like, you know, we call ourselves the web scale like platform. And for that to really be true, we need to kind of hit the same level of cheapness as a Google ad. So the folks we're targeting are folks that are like basically like maybe have originally been an advertisement based platform and now are looking for a way to get rid of that. So this is more of almost like a B2B approach, like where we go after teams and we kind of pitch to them, this is the lowest latency possible way you can build a blockchain. So let's work with you guys directly and hands-on. But we do have an accelerator program as well. And this is kind of in between like 500 startup YC-ish, like where we're looking for teams that we can help get funding and like really get them from idea stage to like a product as well.
Yeah, I think the question around incentives, I mean, the technology itself or the features of the stack should be the incentive, right, to get people excited to build, which is, I think talking, you know, or I think for everyone on the call, I think there are sort of nuances about the platform or things that kind of stand out and make it attractive to a certain use case. For us, that's really the focus on mobile and, you know, kind of basic payments products in particularly markets that don't have, you know, sound currencies or kind of a strong existing financial infrastructure. And so a big part of our journey so far has been spending time in market, talking to developers locally, and these are mostly folks in traditional fintechs that are building on sort of the existing kind of infrastructure out there, and are excited when they hear about the possibilities that this kind of brings. And so we have a bunch of different ways in which we, you know, as a community, I think kind of support each other, or kind of there are resources being provided by kind of folks in the community, whether that's the ecosystem fund run by Polychain or the Alliance for Prosperity, which is sort of in a way like an association of 80 organizations, kind of mostly like bigger established organizations that already have kind of, you know, a strong presence in many markets, like the Grameen Foundation or Mercy Corps, when it comes to kind of lending or cash transfers, and that are looking to kind of use, you know, new technologies and are interested in actually kind of doing deployments and have for the most part done kind of pilots and are kind of now kind of really looking for larger scale deployments, and then smaller programs like, you know, Cello Camp, which is really more geared towards folks starting out and kind of inventing the next generation of financial applications. And it's been super exciting kind of across the spectrum to see just, the activity, and I think the focus on real use cases, which I don't know, I haven't been in the space as long as others on the call here, but kind of even 3 years ago, I feel there wasn't as much focus on the use cases and much more on the sort of the technology. And I think that's been a pretty dramatic shift. And now the technology has come obviously a lot further to enable that. But yeah, it's been very encouraging to see.
We've been, I'd say probably the most exciting thing that's happening on Cosmos right now is sort of an increased amount of collaboration between developers who are sort of working in the Cosmos ecosystem and Cosmos Hub on-chain governance. We passed there was the first governance proposal to use the Onchain Treasury to fund a development of what we call CosmWasm, a sort of WebAssembly stack that integrates into the Cosmos Hub, Cosmos SDK and Cosmos Hub. A number of ecosystem projects have been using it, and it was developed by like a long time sort of developer in the ecosystem, Ethan Fry. But like this sort of collaborative approach between token holders and developers is sort of in its early stages, but we've seen sort of the first sort of concrete funding of things and decisions being made. And I think that's one of the more exciting things that's happening in the Cosmos ecosystem. The other thing that I'm fairly excited about is the new developer experiences that IBC will enable, especially sort of launching things in the Cosmos ecosystem that don't require, doing a Binance IEO or a large scale fundraising to get something up and running and interacting and moving real value around.
Yeah, to add to that on on-chain treasuries, I think they're really, really cool piece of technology and innovation that's been coming about for the past couple of years. One of the things that's kind of interesting is that it can be non-dilutive capital, and that it can be provisioning of common goods without really deeply embedded profit motives, which I think is one of the things that's caused a lot of problems in Silicon Valley. So if you have, a treasury of a chain come together, and this is one of the experiments that we're doing on the Kusama network and we'll be doing on Polkadot as well, is to have an on-chain treasury where the token holders can come together and decide what's important for the chain, what increases the value of the collective, and allocate capital to those things.
Yeah, maybe kind of at one thing on that, which I've been kind of trying to wrap my head around, is I think in the industry so far, we've seen a lot of efforts around grant programs, and grant programs being in a lot of cases the primary source of funding for ecosystems. And I think early on that makes a lot of sense, because there's a lot of need for open source dev tools and other things that may not have like a business kind of case attached to it, but bring a lot of value to the community. And so I think every layer one should have a strong grant program. We do also have a kind of on-chain community fund that's kind of is distributed through governance. But I do wonder if there's more in kind of new structures that kind of can bring more of like a venture kind of approach to the ecosystem, right? And in some cases, it wouldn't even have to be, I'd be very happy for someone to build like a merchant dashboard. It doesn't even have to be a dApp, but just integrates, right? And it's like really good for one particular set of merchants and one particular market. And that in itself could become like a massive, kind of business, right? And the truth is, there are probably a lot of people out there who want to build that kind of business, but don't have access to funding easily, right? And so I think finding kind of, and a grant I don't think is the right approach for that, by the way, because then you just have like a dashboard, and then like a year later, that dashboard is something that no one wants to use, right? And so you have to, I think, set it up kind of as a kind of a for-profit kind of business enterprise. But there may be new ways to kind of structure that so that it doesn't have to go through like the typical kind of VC cycle. And that's something that, I'm kind of pretty interested in.
To his point, like I think we saw this with Aetherium. Like Aetherium is like a really hard piece of technology to use. It's totally alien from anything else outside of Aetherium, right? It's not, doesn't look like C or Java or like any kind of other build environment. but folks made it work because they had to. And the tools that they build by making it work because they had to, I think, were the useful ones. And it's very hard for like a grant program to actually figure out what those tools are before you've established like your niche. Like before you know, like what am I like actually, what is my purpose here? Right. And then that part I think is like almost like, you know, the Silicon Valley thing, product market fit, right? Once you find that, you kind of like start building everything around that. So like this stuff I think is hard. Like for us, I've mostly been following what Cosmos is doing. Like I see Zaki like as somebody that's like a year ahead, and I'm like making a lot of good decisions, or at least I don't see the bad decisions. So like I'm trying to stand on the shoulders of giants here.
Nice. Yeah, Zaki's like the veteran with all the answers, right? Zaki, what do we do? In everyone's groups and chats simultaneously, just like throwing out some answers and suggestions. So
what would Zaki do?
Well, I got bad news for you. It gets harder after you launch. It doesn't get easier.
Yeah, I would second that. I thought things would get easier once we actually launched, but now it's way more work than I expected, and like way more smaller pieces that are really hard to prioritize.
Yeah, I think we're like Cosmos. Like I'm very much in like the mode of, you know, like there is this ongoing, like, you know, there, like, you know, as I had said, like the full vision that was promised hadn't been realized, and it's been a year it's taken us sort of an additional, you know, more than a year to fully realize that vision. But, you know, it is, you know, now I can see light at the end of that tunnel, but like we are really like starting to confront some of the like harder challenges of, you know, for instance, how do you, like Stargate is about how do you make a big ecosystem change in a world where there's like dozens of exchanges and wallets and other platforms that support Cosmos. We are struggling with how do we figure out an incentive compatible way to like encourage like wider participation in governance. Like all of these things are sort of these sustainability challenges that we are, you know, from a economic sustainability point of view, we're doing fine, but from a like a human effort, organizational structure, incentive compatibility standpoint, we have a lot there's a lot we're figuring out right now, and you all will have to figure it out too.
I think there's a lot of lessons to learn here from Ethereum. So like the market difference that I see between Ethereum 1.x and pretty much every other layer one is that Ethereum 1.x, I mean, excluding Bitcoin Cash, all those, but you know, pretty much all the ones in this panel is that like Ethereum has been around for a good long while, and like maintaining a blockchain that has over 10 million blocks through hard forks, through optimizations, through upgrades.
We have 13 million blocks.
Okay, fair. Maybe blocks is not a good representation.
No, we're
of the
all
amount of
here for
time.
the blocks. Like, the blocks are the important thing.
Blocks are almost like blocks are almost as good as green squares on GitHub. The more of them you have, the better you are. But yeah, I think there's a lot of interesting lessons that are you know, of maintaining a blockchain that are, you know, can be learned from work on Ethereum 1.x and from, you know, having developed a client for Ethereum 1.x. You know, that's a very difficult challenge that like once you launch, the cat's out of the bag and like the thing needs to keep running. Until you launch, you can always be like, well, okay, we'll nuke the test net, start a new one. But once we launch, you know, you can't do that anymore.
Yeah, one of the things that like I think we succeeded at is launching it and also iterating at the same time. Like we are still maintaining like a monthly release schedule of like upgrades. The last one wasn't as smooth as we wanted to, but like still features are like coming out, and like to me that was what I saw was unfortunate, like with the Ethereum Foundation, how they're moving towards ETH2 is not an incremental change, it's just like this big shift. And in my career in like software engineering for like, you know, more than a decade, whenever I saw a team or a project or like a VP decide to do that, those things always kind of failed or took 4 times as long and 4 times more expensive than expected. Versus like, but at the same time, the people that incrementally move stuff forward, they don't get rewarded as much. Right? They can't put like a big project on their review cycle, which is sad, right?
So, but one thing that Ethereum didn't really have to address was interoperability, right? And this like new world of all these like layer ones. And I know that there's a lot of collaboration happening between these teams. So there was also a question in the chat about like, why are there so many layer ones out there? Why don't you combine your resources to create one network? I think, a vision is like, there's a lot of opportunity, like decentralization means opportunity of choice. And I think that there's collaboration here happening that is still allowing these different teams and these different protocols to combine resources. And Zaki, you mentioned CosmWasm, and I know that there's like an initiative between Near Protocol and Parity and CosmWasm to kind of like work on some WASM standards. Just talk a little bit more about the collaboration that's going maybe behind the scenes that some folks who maybe aren't deep in the code or kind of like the chats to understand what's happening there.
So there's an increasing degree. So I guess the pattern that I'm expecting is that like as like individual layer ones achieve technical maturity, like sort of more collaboration starts to occur. It's just sort of the natural state of things because I guess kind of back to the root question, which was why should there be multiple layer ones? And I guess the Cosmos view is there is no free lunch and there are inherent trade-offs in any layer one protocol, and that we should embrace those inherent trade-offs through interoperability rather than trying to design some sort of super system that makes no trade-offs. And so that's why I've always been a big supporter of collaboration between these protocols. There is a team at Chorus One funded by the Web3 Foundation right now working on an IBC to substrate chain bridge. So to like sort of allow people to build substrate chains and interoperate with the Cosmos ecosystem. We have been having a very fruitful collaboration between the Near team, and the CosmWasm team and teams from the Web3 Foundation about how to sort of optimize WebAssembly for blockchains, and that's been extremely helpful and useful. So in general, there's a lot of shared technology that we're sort of all contributing to, in addition to sort of the learning about like consensus algorithms and proof of stake economics and all that have been shared among these projects.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically just different strokes for different folks. Like, different projects are going to need different trade-offs and are going to want to deploy on different different layer ones with different properties. But there's been so much research done in the bridging ecosystem. And, one of the things that Zaki brought up earlier that was really, really exciting to me was, this idea of like a cross-chain block explorer, where like, once you have this full interoperability and you'll be able to track transactions across, many different chains, might follow something from like, across many different applications on many different chains corresponding to accounts here and there. And really it's all about just maintaining optionality for the users. And certain things are just inherently going to be more efficient on systems that are specialized for that and that have the community for it.
Yeah, maybe to up level just a little bit. So I think beyond sort of the efforts that we all work on, which obviously all kind of permissionless networks, there will be permission networks that will gain pretty significant tractions, CBDCs, corporate networks, and it may be for kind of niche use cases, or it may be for broad use cases, who knows, right? I mean, we don't have the crystal ball, but I think kind of with a very kind of pragmatic kind of hat on, it's likely that, in the future, we'll have a world where we have, a mix of permissionless and permission systems and bridges between those. And I think that's a pretty likely future, and one that I think we're all kind of in a way like preparing and working towards. And it does, in addition to sort of the specialization advantage of each of sort of the solutions, it will also kind of obviously help from a scalability perspective. And so I think in a way it could be pretty good middle ground, so.
The collaboration here is just almost out of necessity. What else can we do, right? We are the startups. What we're trying to replace is this like massive, centralized world full of regulation. It's just a billion times bigger than us right now. If you think of all the financial systems and all the kind of governance systems out there in the world, that is the entire world, right? And we're trying to build something new from scratch. So I think there's no way else for us to do it. Like, I think also, like, I'm gonna guess, looking at the Scala validator map and the Cosmos map and our map, and I haven't seen the parity map yet, but it's the same dots in the same spots and the same validator. So we are inherently all almost like one network, and like building the software to just like, to have those private keys do something in each one, I think is like almost like a detail, right? An implementation detail.
Yeah, there's a lot of shared resources across all these projects.
Yeah.
Cool. So we have, I think, 3 minutes left. There was a question in the chat that I think is interesting, given that you don't even know what tomorrow looks like. So we'll skip the question of like, what does the future of your protocol and your ecosystem look like? But maybe in the next like 12 months, maybe we can map out from there. What does that look like for each of you? What do the next 12 months bring in terms of development and the ecosystem that you're working on?
So I'll go first. It's a simple question. So I anticipate that there will be an IBC ecosystem by sort of August or September that exists, that we will successfully navigate the Stargate upgrade process, and the Cosmos Hub will essentially embody the ideas that were in the Cosmos white paper, and that will be amazing. And I guess the sort of directionality before that kind of comes down to our developer community, governance, and all of these sort of emerging sort of self-sustaining phenomenon or organic phenomena that are starting to emerge into the sort of decentralized ecosystem.
Yeah, for us, it's twofold. I mean, on the one hand, it's really all about adoption, right? I mean, we've spent 2.5 years running pilots, doing research. Now it's time to actually roll out. And, a lot of organizations that are excited to get going, right? Helping where we can. And so you'll see across a bunch of different use cases, actually end users using Celo currencies, which is super exciting. And then sort of the second one, just in parallel, obviously keep improving the platform. We're not done. This is just, an early milestone. So there's a lot more work to do.
I guess for us, we want to see like all the major partners we've announced fully moved over and onboarded, and hopefully like getting like 10 million monthly active users. I mean, that's kind of our key metric for us.
And for us, we're going to be there's a lot on the plate, so we're going to be upgrading we're going to be deploying a mainnet. We're going to be transforming a chain candidate, probably chain candidate 1, into a mainnet, deploying parachains, deploying parathreads, which are pay-as-you-go blockchains, doing a load of developer outreach, building up a load of teams around the project, giving them money, et cetera, et cetera. And yeah, that's probably the next 12 months. Thanks, Ryan.
There's a collaboration here between Rob and Ryan. Rob's just like freestyling over some. Well, thank you all for joining us. Thank you, Ryan and the Messari team, for organizing this. Really appreciate it.